last week, CNN exclusively reported the prosecutors had an audio recording of Trump admitting he kept a classified Pentagon document about a potential attack on Iran. Well, now, and this is what is new, we are learning exactly what former President Trump said during that private meeting in 2021.
Now, according to a transcript of that recording, Trump acknowledged he hadn't declassified the document, and they didn't have the power to do so. He told people in the room, quote, "As president, I could have declassified, but now I can't." You'll note that goes completely against what the former president has been saying publicly.
Do you still have any classified documents in your possession?
Are you ready?
Do you?
No, I don't have anything. I have no classified documents. And by the way, they become automatically declassified when I took them. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it, because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it. When you send it, it's declassified. I declassified everything.
Well, CNN's Paula Reed broke this story. Paula Reed joins us now. Paula, it's big developments. Walk us through the transcript.
Well, good morning, Phil. This exclusive, of course, building on our bombshell report last week with Caitlin Collins and Caitlin Polans about this recording where the former president not only claims to have retained classified information, but also acknowledges the limits of his power to do so. And now we have the transcript of the relevant portion, and I'm going to read some parts of that, but it's clear he acknowledges or claims that he kept secret information. Now, in this recording, this was back in July 2021, he is speaking to some visitors at his New Jersey golf club. We know from our sources that among the people in the room were at least two people working on Mark Meadows' autobiography, as well as some Trump aides. He is referring here to General Mark Milley. He says, quote, "Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't that amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up." On the tape, we're told that you can hear him rustling the papers at this point. "Look, this was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him." I'll keep reading, but you can tell at least 4 times, he emphasizes that this was Milley. He goes on to say all sorts of stuff, pages long. "Look, wait a minute, let's see here. I just found, isn't this amazing? This totally wins my case." And I want to note here, his case he's referring to here is this dispute with Milley, not the current pending criminal investigation. "Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. Look at this." I will note that secret and confidential are both, of course, levels of classification. And then arguably the most damning quote, he says, he asks someone in the room if he can declassify it. And then he says, "As president, I could have declassified, but now I can't." And of course, that last quote undercutting all of the public arguments that he, his allies, and his attorneys have made about how he was able to declassify things once he left office, or that he may have even had a standing declassification order to declassify any materials in his possession before he left office. But in terms of the investigation, prosecutors are likely going to be most interested in the fact that he is claiming to have retained secret information and is appearing to try to share that with a room full of people, none of whom had security clearances. So again, this is a really key piece of evidence in this ongoing investigation.
Yeah, Paula, this was, reading your reporting this morning, it was a genuine kind of jaw-drop moment for a minute, just because of how many things it seemed to rebut about what the president has said publicly. You kind of got at this a little bit, but what is your sense of how this will factor into things going forward or into the indictments that we haven't seen yet?
When we were doing our reporting on the existence of this audio recording last week, one source close to the legal team told me, look, this audio recording, this is a problem. And the former president's legal team only learned about this a few months ago in March when a witness was asked about it before the grand jury. I also want to note that prosecutors subpoenaed the document that he refers to, and they still don't have it. It's unclear, one, what this document was. if it was indeed a real document, though it appears by this transcript, he does clearly think that he is in possession of something, that he is showing them something that supports his argument against Milley. But at this point, it's not clear that the government even has this document in its possession. So we don't have the indictment at this point. It's unclear when that will be unsealed, but it would not be surprising if this audio recording or quotes from it come up in the indictment. But at this point, we don't know. It's clearly, though, a piece of evidence that even the former president's legal team acknowledges is a problem for him.
This is remarkable in every way, Paula. Everyone should go on CNN.com right now and read through your report because you have all of these stunning quotes in there. Thank you for this. Stick with us. Let's also bring in Caitlin Polantz, live outside the courthouse in Miami, where Trump will appear Tuesday afternoon. You were one of the reporters who broke the story of that taped conversation. This development to that is extremely significant.
It is. Poppy and Phil, we knew what this was going to sound like because it had been described to us, but to see the words there on the screen, to hear Paula read those words that former President Donald Trump uttered after he left the White House in this meeting, where it's capturing the sound of him rustling through papers, where there are multiple witnesses in the room. And, you know, the big question here, as Paula was saying, is this going to be part of the charge explicitly? And if it is, that sets this recording up to be a key piece of evidence as this heads to trial. It would be something that the Justice Department would very likely play to the jury, almost certainly, if that is part of what is indicted here as a retention charge. And once they have that retention charge, that is something we know that is going to be charged in the case because Donald Trump's attorney last night, Jim Trusty, said it would be. We don't know exactly what paper it will be around, what classified documents. But if it is about this document he's describing in this audio tape, and that episode is part of this from July 2021 at Bedminster, if that's part of the case, they have to prove two things. That Donald Trump knew he had a classified record or a national defense information piece of paper in his possession, and that he was willfully keeping it from the federal government outside of a protected classification area. Not that he has the ability to declassify it, although it is quite sensational that he says, as president, I could have declassified, but now I can't. But the other words in this, I'll show you. Look at this. Highly confidential. This is secret information. It doesn't really get much more explicit than that.
It really doesn't. Caitlin Polantz, also stay right there. Let's bring in our colleague and friend, CNN anchor Caitlin Collins, who was also on that team that broke the stunning reporting last week. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez also joins us, and CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams is with us, and CNN political analyst and senior political correspondent for the New York Times, Maggie Haberman. Paula Reed also back with us. I want to read part of this transcript. Quote, as president, I could have declassified, but now I can't. Perhaps the most stunning line of all of this. Caitlin Collins, let me go to you for your thoughts, given you were a key part of this team that broke the original reporting. Do you expect that that would be a key part when this indictment is unsealed? Everyone will be looking for, was this tape a key part of it? Because this was, again, about Iran. This was about a key national security issue.
Yeah, and it completely undercuts everything that Trump and his legal team has said publicly about the powers that he had after leaving office or what he could do with these documents. And I do think that is one of those damning lines of the transcript of this tape that we reported on. And there's a reason this tape has caused so much consternation in Trump's legal team. They didn't learn about it all that long ago. It was only in March when this recording was played during testimony from another Trump aide where they heard it. And then Trump's legal team was alerted to the fact that prosecutors did have this audio in their hands. And having Trump on tape admitting that he doesn't have the power to declassify it, which we all knew because we've read the Presidential Records Act, we've looked at what that declassification process is, but it completely undercuts any of the defenses that you've seen Trump's legal team offer up publicly. And so that is why this is such a central piece in this reporting, of course, in the bigger context of what we saw last night with the former president being indicted in this, and of course, now going where Caitlin Polantz is on Tuesday to that Miami courthouse. This is going to be something that is a real problem for his legal team to try to defend in court and explain. And it's something that they are pretty candid about behind the scenes when it comes to just how crucial this tape is.
Elliot, as a lawyer, when you look through or listen to that transcript, there's, yes, him acknowledging that he can't unilaterally declassify things by magic or after the fact. He also seems to be holding and talking about a specific document. What stands out to you as most problematic for the former president's legal team?
Well, what helps the former president is it appears that they have not found this document, and it appears, based on what we know about the charges thus far, that he was not charged with disclosing the contents of a document to another person. That itself would have been a federal offense if he'd had access to something sensitive and shown it to somebody else, if it could hurt the national defense. Look, a challenge here is that classification or declassification doesn't really matter as an element of the offenses he's charged with. Merely what it matters is that they're government records, and most importantly, that there was a series of acts taken to obstruct the Justice Department's investigation. So it's a little bit of a red herring to go down the road of saying, if he declassified it, therefore there would not have been crimes committed here, because the simple fact is once the documents were removed, mishandled, misappropriated, whatever word you want to use, that's when the crimes were committed.